I want to share with you some images from SDXL 1.0. So this one actually comes from SDXL 1.0, but using the base model for SDXL 1.0 and actually using the old refiner from 0.9. So there's a certain aesthetic difference between the old refiner and the new refiner. This is the one using the new refiner. There's a little bit more detail in the cat, and you can actually see one which uses the old refiner. And that's it there. It's a little bit cleaner. The colors are different. There's a slightly different feeling to it. All in all, given the prompt that I was using, I would have to say the new one did a little bit better what I was actually looking for. It respected the prompt a little bit better. So the new refiner works differently to the old refiner. And this is one which comes once again from the same prompt, just a different seed. Again, this is all SDXL 1.0. With this one, I wanted the image to be quite cute. And I also wanted a little bit of detail on the ground. So we've got this sort of texture on the ground, which was intentional, but I wanted the cat to look fairly realistic, which also I think it managed to do that. There's some very nice lights coming in the cat's eyes, which wasn't expecting. Another one with a cat or a kitten, whatever you want to call it, a slightly more realistic ground. When I was first working with this, the refiner would turn the ground into cracked dry earth, and I had to be careful with the prompting to make sure that I kind of kept the beautiful town in the background and cobbled terracing. And this was one which really kind of surprised me. I was trying to get the lion. The prompt didn't work at all. The lion was supposed to have another animal next to it. All it did was to create this shady looking character in the background, and I don't know what sort of animal that's supposed to be, but you can tell with this one that if you can see this close up on the screen on your monitor, you can see that this is fairly, I would say it looks almost like a photograph. It's not clean and perfect like some AI generated images are. It's got that sort of fuzzy feeling that you sometimes get with AI, with a photograph, with a real photograph. And that's something I've had real difficulty getting with previous images that I've worked with. This one again was very, very photographic. It felt kind of natural. It really did feel like a normal photograph. The ground has a lot of detail on it. This is after the refiner, the new refiner. All of these now are using the new refiner from 1.0. And I think they look good. I think they just instinctively, it looks like a real image. But the real trick is actually to get to that real looking image with the prompting. And this one is not supposed to look like a real image. It's supposed to be a complete fantasy. We've got someone who's looking through what is supposed to be some type of portal. So the description for this was the prompt for this was trying to make a contrast between the environment outside and the environment inside. And somehow this software got it. It understood, I want a girl on the outside looking in. I want her looking in to a completely different universe, something a lot more hopeful than the kind of ruined environment in which she is standing. I honestly don't know how it did it, but it really figured out what I wanted. And this was one on the same theme. This one is, again, it's being fully rendered with the refiner as well as the base. This one wasn't exactly what I was looking for. This was an early attempt to get that same image that we just looked at. And it kind of half got there. It got that there's a different environment inside to outside, and the girl is looking into the environment. Maybe she's trying to pass into this kind of weird portal. And this is one without the refinement. It's nice to see sometimes the before the refinement and the after the refinement. And maybe we can go back and look at the one after the refinement. You can see this one. There's that kind of photographic imperfection there's a graininess in the image, whereas this one, it looks almost too clean to be a photograph. But you can tell very quickly whether a render is going to work well with SDXL 1.0. Now with this one, I think I managed to really get what I was looking for in terms of the composition, with the very evident ruined structure on the outside and the very hopeful alternative universe on the inside. And again, I felt that the software was really understanding the prompt that I was trying to give it. This one, it got it nearly perfectly, but this is the fully rendered one with the refiner. And initially, these structures, they looked like skyscrapers. So I told it to create a futuristic looking alternative universe, and it got it right. And then with the refiner, it took away some of that correct detail. It gives us this geological, these look like mountains. It's not exactly what I was looking for. If we zoom out, I think it looks fine. I think it gets 90% of what I was trying to get. And I think compositionally, this is one of the better ones, but sometimes the prompting can be a little bit difficult. And with this one, again, I really like this one with the girl with the backpack. She's looking into this clearly different universe. This object, which I described as a mirror, it's also a portal, and she's looking through it. There's a feeling in the photograph. There's a kind of sense that almost the software understanding I want her to be looking into this object, seeing something, being affected by it. The fact that I described it as a mirror and then it enlarged it to this massive size was a surprise, and it was a very pleasant surprise. That's not what I was expecting, but it's exactly what the image needed. And with this image, I was very surprised by it. It was very artistic, same prompt, but different look. And that's what you want. You want something which is a little bit varied from what are the other things that you got. You don't want everything to be exactly the same. So with this one, much more artistic. There's a sense of the composition being almost too perfect. What I like about it is that the composition isn't perfect. There's not a perfect reflection of the mirror. I was expecting there to be, but it reflected this object here, but didn't reflect this object. You can't see the reflection there. Interesting. In this particular composition, it kind of works because this is supposed to be a mysterious object. But in some other compositions, someone would look at that and say, oh, that's not perfect. And I think there's an element of accepting what you get with the software sometimes. It sometimes surprises you. Sometimes the surprise is good. Sometimes it's not so good. And then with this one, it was the same prompt, but I really liked the way it described the devastated city that I wanted her to be sort of a part of. And I wanted her to be looking into something a whole lot more hopeful. We didn't have enough detail in the image to really kind of portray what I wanted to see in the alternative universe. But maybe when we have larger images inside of Stable Diffusion, you'll be able to see all kinds of fantastic things in these alternative universes. So back to the mundane. This is something which it took a bit of time to get this one. I wanted a woman on a hillside overlooking a town, and it kept giving me a woman in a street, but eventually got there. This is the refined version. You can see quite a lot of detail in the skin. You can see almost some wrinkling in the skin. There's a tiny amount of wrinkling around the eyes. You can see that there. I said she was 28 years old. She looks 28 years old. And I said she was plus size, and it gave her a little bit of substance. She still looks good. And her eyes, the one complaint I would have is that the eyes are not yet perfect. I don't need to put in descriptions about the eyelashes looking beautiful. It just seems to figure that out. Maybe sometimes we will put in false eyelashes in the prompt, but with this one, the eyes are not yet perfect. I think better eyes can be a little bit difficult to fix, particularly in Photoshop. So we've got catch lights, which are these lights where you can see the lights in the eyes. Those are catch lights. It produces those almost automatically. In previous versions, I had to ask specifically, I want to see catch lights. I want to see catch lights in the eyes. And it knows what that is. The previous versions, Stable Diffusion 1.5, it understood, it produced catch lights, and in this one it produces them almost too often, and they're not perfect. There's a certain way that you know a catch light should look. And it needs to be near perfect for it to be convincing. I mean, if you zoom out, it looks fine. It looks fantastic. But when you zoom in, you can see some of the irregularities. You can see it struggled a little bit. And I had to tell it to really enlarge the irises, the large, the dark parts of the eyes. I was saying, look, you got to dilate the pupils because I want to be able to see a little bit of substance in the eyes. And this is the unrefined version. It looks plastic. Maybe there's a bit of texture here, which is kind of nice, but a little bit too plastic compared to the refined version. And this is the workflow. So we're starting off with the unrefined version, about 40 passes, and then we're moving to a slightly more refined version. It's possible that in future I will omit this pass because it doesn't do very much. We go to a much more refined version. This is almost the final version. And then we finally just give it a little bit more, just a tiny bit of punch. And that was the final image.